You're listening to the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast with Mark Allred, Court Lalonde, and Rob Tomlin. You can subscribe and rate our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Player.fm, SoundCloud.com, and Stitcher Radio. You can help the show financially by going to the blackandgoldhockeyblog.com website and clicking on either the Amazon.com or Fanatics.com banners to the right before shopping online. Now, time to start the Bruins hockey talk from 3 different countries. Enjoy the show.
Orr fights to keep it in. Does. Has it in the corner to Sanderson. Back in front to Orr. Shot. Scores! Bobby Orr!
Ray Bork. Scores! Ray Bork from the face-off circle to the right of Reggie Lemlin. Fired it down and Whitmore blew it.
Bounces down to Bergeron. He takes the space, pulling it wide to the right of Tatar. The snapshot over Mrazek. It's loose, and Bergeron scores! Patrice Bergeron!
Hey Bruins fans, welcome back to episode 82 of the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast in partnership with Grandstand Sports Network, the best view in sports. Court, Rob, welcome back, my friends. How was your week?
Mine's been good, other than I think I had food poisoning yesterday.
Oh, Jesus.
Most of the day on the toilet, so that was fun.
Sounds nasty.
Other than that, it's been good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a little too graphic.
Yeah.
Well, I found out that we have like an American diner in the town that I live in, and it got new management, so I was like, oh, let's go try it out, and that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. How are you guys doing this week?
Well, I got tickets to the next Bruins Leafs game on February 23rd in Toronto for free from a wife's friend, which that is awesome. And in that same day, I got to wear with my head high today because the Boston Bruins beat the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-1. Oh, it just feels so good. It's been so long for me. It's been like, and I get chirped, and I'm always like, well, it's been 2 years, yes, but it's like they forget about the record before when I think the Bruins had won like 11 in a row against them. Plus, the obvious Game 7 where they sucked and we won. But yes, the Leafs have owned the Bruins. Frederik Andersen, I think that's his first loss in 10 games to the Bruins.
Yeah, I believe so.
That's his first loss ever to the Bruins.
Yeah,
it was
ever.
Perfect 10-0, yeah.
Jesus.
So that must be gutting for him.
And if you look at it, I tweeted it last night, the Bruins did technically score every goal last night.
Yeah.
My week was good. Long week. Lots of overtime. I got to eat it up as much as I can. But it's good. I put some money down on some new equipment for the Beers and Bruins podcast, which is going to be happening very soon. And yeah, we get a nice lineup of topics to talk about today. We also stay tuned after our program, our show, as I welcome friend of the show, Colin Bestwick, NHL writer for SB Nation's Stanley Cup of Chowder. So I'm looking forward to talking to him. And I also just have to give a shout out to fellow co-workers Aaron, Krista, and my boy Dave. Those guys have been really pumping the tires of the show. They love us, and it's starting to get more popular in my plant of 160 employees. So, we love listeners. So,
yeah, I'm not going to lie. If I pump the tires to my friends, they tell me to push sand.
You're just in the wrong area, my friend.
100%. I was having a party at 1 this morning. Sorry, my wife. My father-in-law, actually, quick story, my father-in-law sent a text last night and chirped, and then called, and then chirped again before the game even started. And I said to my wife, I'm not going to say anything, I'm going to let it go. And that at 7:30 this morning, we called him to make fun of him. Because it felt fantastic.
Oh, the family trips. You got to love it. All right, let's just get right into it. As always, we start with the games prior to last week. I wasn't very impressed with the effort that they gave against the Anaheim Ducks. It happens. I get it. There's going to be one of those games that, it just doesn't work out right. But I was really looking forward. Most of all, I was just really looking forward to that, like tying the franchise record of consecutive games with at least points. But it is what it is. I wasn't thrilled with Anton Hudobin's game. And one of the reasons why I wasn't thrilled with him in that game, and as a goaltender, Rob, I'm sure that you can follow up with me on this one. It's tough to get new equipment broken in mid-season, and he was using a brand new glove, and you could tell that he was struggling with it.
Yeah, those things are the glove is the worst thing as well, because the bounce inside the pocket when you first got a brand new glove, every time the puck hits it, it just bounces back out.
Yeah.
It's very hard to snap it close, and you could definitely tell that was happening.
And
as well, for me, Hudobin has these games where I think he goes for the big flashy save a bit too often. And sometimes it works out, don't get me wrong. There's goalies that pull it off all the time, but sometimes you look at it and you think, if you did just stayed in butterfly there and not tried to roll around, you'd have got it. So
the one thing for me is he refused to wear his broken in practice glove.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's his decision ultimately. He's the guy that's out there playing. I'm not. I just saw some things that I just really did not like in his game on that Tuesday night. So, but
at the same time, he's like stole the show for the last 3-4 weeks of being the backup. So
yeah. One
bad game, we can't really.
No,
absolutely.
I was going to say, I play devil's advocate here. It was just one game.
Yeah. Yep. No, totally good.
Elliot Freeman of CBC Hockey Night in Canada last night said that the Boston Bruins are the top team to beat right now in the NHL. Yeah.
I love that.
They looked at the stats and they were all laughing. They're like, it just stuck up on you. And you just look at it. You look at Tuukka's stats. 20 games. He hasn't lost since people had Christmas lists.
Very true. And then Thursday night was a game that I thought that the Bruins would have lost, actually, but came in and put in a solid effort against a very good St. Louis Blues team. I thought that game was back and forth. A lot of east to west action. It was a good game overall. I'm impressed. I'm definitely impressed with the way this team looks, and it just got even better on Saturday night with another home victory against the Toronto Maple Leafs and Court's coming out party.
Oh yeah, it's like the greatest thing. Everybody called it the statement game. I'm like, okay, everybody's been saying they don't win big games. They haven't been doing this. They destroyed Montreal this year. Yeah, they lost to the Leafs, but I said it before. The last time we played them, we weren't the club that we are now. We didn't have the players that we have now. And I'm not making excuses, but I kind of am. I said to Mark at the beginning of the year, it's like, this team's hurt. There's a lot of hockey left. I even compared it, if you remember, I did the article where I looked back in the stats, and the year they won the Cup, they were terrible at the beginning of the year that year. Yep. And then they just started getting on a roll. And they seem to done it again. And Patrice Bergeron is playing like a Hart Trophy candidate.
Yeah, that's exciting to hear too.
You got Pasta. He's got 10 points in the last 8 games. You got Bergeron. He's in the last 14 games. He's got 12 goals, 8 assists. Jesus.
Right.
20 points in the last 14 games for Patrice Bergeron. When have you ever said that?
I don't remember him having a year like this, and in his early 30s, I didn't expect this. What I did expect is him to be that 200-foot center that is that offensive defensive style, but the point production that he's been going through, like you said, in the last 14 games, has just been phenomenal. And he's just expressing his leadership through his play, and it's so awesome to see. I said on Twitter the other night, it's like poetry. It's like watching poetry. It really is.
Well, if you look at the team right now, you've got Bergeron, and they were saying it even in the hockey media here in Canada. They were saying if you would take Bergeron in your top 5 if you were starting a team, he'd be a top 5 pick. He's that good right now. And they also were saying and he is, if you look at it, he has the best contract in the NHL for value. Bar none. And it's not just him. If you look at it in that St. Louis game, that hit that Backes made at the end and the effort to score that empty net goal was unreal. And the way Chara's been playing, if you look at it, and the way Krejci's been playing it, what do all 4 of those players have in common? They got a letter on their shoulder.
Right.
And they're playing phenomenal. And they're the ones that are leading out there. And you've got Bergeron on one line, you've got Backes on one, you've got Krejci, you've got this leadership. And then you've got Chara leading that back end. At 40 years old, he's second in the league in plus minus. Did anybody see that coming? Did anybody?
Nope, I didn't.
And anyone that says they did, no. I've seen so many people saying they called what's happening this year with the Bruins, and I just think back and go, no.
No, even Sweeney said himself, right? He was like, I thought it would be 2 more years before we got to this point. But you have so much, like Jake DeBrusk plays so well. I think they finally found a player to play with Krejci. Mm-hmm. They play so well together. They pass that puck around very well.
Yeah, they definitely complement each other.
So has Spooner as well.
Spooner's been playing amazing.
Yeah.
The games coming up this week. It's the month of February is a little spread out, but it's very condensed. If you can understand what I'm saying. Next week they start their first back-to-back of the month on Tuesday against the Detroit Red Wings on the road. The New York Rangers on the road Wednesday night.
And in that Rangers game, Marchand's back, so it's like it is a back-to-back, but it's almost like a boost. Right. You're getting a player jump back in the lineup. It's like doing a trade deadline.
And then to end the week on the 10th, Saturday at 7, the Bruins come home to host the Buffalo Sabres. So definitely a week that it can produce, but also a week that they can get their rest because they got two days of rest. Then they go to the back-to-back 2 days, and then they play Buffalo. And then the rest of the month is pretty much a favored Sunday, Monday, Tuesday kind of schedule.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row they got 3 days off.
Right.
It's amazing.
But also, I kind of think this is important to have a schedule like this. I'm not saying the league did this on purpose. But
you got the trade deadline.
Right. You do have the trade deadline coming up. But also, if you look at the month of March, you're playing every other day of the month. Literally, every other day of the month. So
to get the points now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get ahead, which, I mean, right now it's just crazy not to think that they can secure a playoff spot.
So they got a 99% chance of making the playoffs now. 99.6 this morning or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything's pretty much lining up right now. It's just how they construct themselves and practices and so on and prepare for the rest of the season, which in my surprise has gone by way too fast. I swear to God, I thought it seemed like a couple weeks ago we did our first episode of the season.
I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, okay, I'm going to the Leaf game in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after that, I go to 2 games in Boston.
Right.
Wow, 3 games in 2 weeks. Oh, that's going to be terrible. Sarcasm.
Oh yeah, big time.
And I get to go to the game right after the trade deadline, so hopefully there's some new bodies.
Yeah, but also with you saying that, with the 3 games that are coming up against the Rangers, the Sabres, and the Red Wings, that's 3 scouting games for teams that are going to be selling as well. So that's another good thing to look forward to.
And also with the defense playing the way they are and that schedule coming up, it's going to be phenomenal that they're going to be able to rotate people in. Like someone suggested to me this morning on social media, maybe sitting Chara for a game. My answer was, let's make him make that decision. But maybe, just maybe, because of this rotation, we have McQuaid and Miller. That's obviously going to be the rotation because I think Carlo is not coming out of the lineup. It's only those 2 players. Maybe Chara sits a game later on in March when we have a game every other night. Maybe they take a cue out of basketball. I don't watch it very often, but someone was using this as an analogy this morning that in basketball, they sit players near the end of the year to make sure they're okay for the playoffs, because the last thing we want is a first round like we had last year, where everybody went down in a matter of a week.
Right. So the way the Bruins are right now, after 50 games, they have 31 wins, 11 losses, 8 overtime appearances for 70 points. That's 5 points behind Tampa Bay. The goal differential has every week, it seems like it's climbing. And an
They're
impressive
fourth in goals per game.
Yeah. An impressive home record, which we'll definitely talk about later on, at 18-6-4, and an even better away record at 13-5-4. And in the last 10 games, they're 8-1-1. So with that being said,
They're kind of good, eh?
Yeah, they're scary good. And this was scary good in research that I did. But the Bruins have points in 30 games dating back to, I didn't write the date down, but it was back in November when the Bruins and the Maple Leafs had the Friday, Saturday back-to-back. So it's dating back to that Saturday. And they've only lost in regulation 5 times. So that was a stat that I really wanted to bring up, because that's impressive. It really is. Even more impressive is the like we did talk about Chara a little bit, but 1,400 games on Saturday night last night against the Maple Leafs. What a career, huh?
Yeah.
He could be. Someone made a joke last night. He could be the father of some players in the league now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he was talking about in the interview before the game about his kid and like how he wants, like seeing him playing in the league and everything, and whether he wants him to be an NHL player, and that was good to hear, because could you imagine Chara Jr. just being there 7 feet tall? Yeah, that would be a good guy to have coming up in the draft. But it's just amazing how humble he is as well as a person. Like, he knows that accomplishment is a huge one, and he's still like just so humble about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been a different guy this year. He's like I think we said last week. He's on social media now for the first time. He's talking more. Like, I know he does his interviews, but he seems to be putting himself out there a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
And any interview you hear with anybody, like Schaller last night, wearing that Chara T-shirt, I must get one. If any of the listeners know where you can get one, let me know. I got to get that T-shirt. That was just awesome. It seems that every player on that team, as much as everybody wants Bergeron the captain, and I've said it before, doesn't matter what the letter is on your sweater, they're all captains. That leadership team of Krejci, Backes, Bergeron, and Chara are the reason this team is playing, because every game one of them steps up. It's one of them that does something. It's awesome.
The thing for me, and what I'm seeing more and more of, and it is a small sample size for Bruce Cassidy's tenure in Boston, but we're seeing the message that they're delivering being accepted. And they see a plan moving forward, which I don't think the message was. We're not in the room. We don't understand what goes on, especially what happened with Claude Julien. But it just didn't seem like they were all on board with his vision. It seems to me now that with Bruce Cassidy installed as a full-time head coach, that mission is now being accepted, and they want to be a part of it. So. I'm hearing cohesion. I'm hearing leadership. I'm hearing, they're playing for one another like they haven't been in the past. So this is all positive things moving forward, not only for the success of this year, but for many years down the road. This is going to be a time to be a Bruins fan and really read into what the organization is going to do, as into like making a serious run for Stanley Cup on a yearly basis. I'm not saying that they're not going to, get to that point this year, but to have those expectations or goals every year. It's going to be exciting to see, and I love it. So
it'd be awesome to see Chara retire with another cup.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's just like in the game last night. My two biggest takeaways were, I'm sure you guys probably would have saw it. There was the hit. There was the shift where Chara pinched, did huge check in the corner, and that's when Heinen was able to steal the puck, and that was the first goal. And then 2 shifts later, he has that shift against Matthews and annihilates Matthews in the corner. And then you had, in that same shift, you had Bergeron do that back check out of nowhere, and he came in, and I think it was Van Riesreich. He was almost getting the breakaway, and Bergeron came back, didn't get a penalty, stole the puck off him perfectly, cleanly, and came back. It was just in that 5-minute span where I was like, wow, the Bruins are just dominating the Leafs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to say that the Leafs have been fast and young, and the Bruins are still keeping up with them with veteran core players.
Exactly. It was Bergeron and Chara, if you think about it. Bergeron scored that first goal, and it was Chara that pinched to start the whole play. And that's what's been happening since they started winning again. It's been, if you remember when the streak all started, we were saying how great Krejci was playing. And he was playing playing better than we've seen him play in a long time. And then all of a sudden we were saying Backus is playing great. It seems to be a new guy stepping it up each week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Marchand was out of this lineup, and half the fan base was like, well, it's over. We lose to Anaheim. They're like, oh, we're not going to be winning no more. Life's over. Well, no, it's not. The team's winning without their best winger in the lineup. One of the best players in the league is not even playing, and we're still winning.
The return of Charlie McAvoy last night was, I believe it was a little early. I thought they were going to say he was 2 weeks, but
That was 2 weeks.
It was 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's what I said it from the beginning. As soon as this happened, I said he'll be back against the Leafs.
Oh, you did say that, actually. I do remember that.
Like I said before, I've had this surgery, guys.
Yep.
You know when you're ready, and if it wasn't for the incision, he probably would have been back earlier.
Yeah, which I found out through my research and further into the topic. It wasn't as much as the procedure itself.
Yeah.
It was they were worried about infection.
Yeah, you just got to make sure, because think about it, he's going to be sweaty equipment, all that kind of stuff. And you just want to make sure there's no blood clots, all that kind of stuff. Right,
and as many people know, if you're a hockey player or have a family member in the hockey world, the equipment
stinks, man.
It stinks, and it carries a lot of nastiness. So
Marian Hosta doesn't play in the league because of his equipment.
Right. So, but no, it's good to see him back. Unfortunate about that one goal last night. Can't blame him for that. It was just a mistake. But it's good to see him back in the lineup and getting back on the top defensive pairing with Chara again. And it seems like the lines are really settling down on the back end. So I'm glad to have him back.
He looked rusty, though.
He did look rusty.
I'll be honest. That was the first time I ever watched Charlie McAvoy and go, maybe cut his ice time a little bit. I think he was gripping his stick a little tight.
I think he was just trying to do a lot of it himself.
Yeah.
And there was, when that goal happened and he tipped the puck in his own net, you could see how distraught he was. You could see how pissed off with himself he was. But then another good thing, Tuukka Rask went out behind the net to talk to him and calm him down, and then he looked better than anything after that.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he gave him that little pat on the butt.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. But
remember, Tuukka hates his teammates.
Yeah, all three of us have played hockey. All three of us know there's times where you do one thing wrong and it ruins your whole game. It pisses you off to the point that you might as well be off the ice.
100%. It gets in your head, right?
Yeah. And, that happened last night to him, but he's that good a player, he managed to snap out of it.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing about it.
I'm not saying he was terrible. I'm saying for Charlie McAvoy, it was his worst game.
Oh, yeah.
And that's par in comparison to any player in the league.
Austin Czarnik got the call up from Providence, and he was doing he's a point per player down in the AHL, point per game player in the AHL, and deserved the call up regardless of how long, and he was sent back down today as the team announced. But I thought he played well. I thought he played really well, assisting on the accrued goal. Nice pass for a one-timer. My question to you guys is, he's coming up on, he did sign a 1-year deal. It was a 2-way. What does the organization do with him this summer? Because, I mean, in my opinion, I'd love to see him stick around as that depth player. But with so many other players coming up and knocking on the door of NHL careers, I don't know where he's going to land. And it's sad for me to say that because I really enjoy watching him play.
I honestly think he's going to play the fourth-line center role next year. I think he would be there now, but Curley can't hold the first line in the AHL. He's not that type of player to play first-line minutes in the AHL. He's like a rough player, so he can play the fourth line in the NHL, but you need that playmaking center for the first line. And he is kind of the Bergeron of the AHL. He plays all 200 feet. He can play offensively or defensively. So I think the only reason that he's down there this year is because of that reason. I think he'll be up next year. I think we've all been talking about the fact that a guy like Schaller or a guy like Nash could be gone next year. And him and JFK can fulfill them roles if they're ready. I think Czarnik is ready, to be honest. But it's good for them to get the time in the AHL. Plus, it can only increase his value if you want to trade him off.
Yeah, that line played great. I think anybody who's played on that fourth line so far this year has played very well. He seemed to elevate Vetrano's play. That was the first game where, at the beginning of the game, I think I tweeted it, like, oh, this line's not going to get a lot of ice time. They were at their... Cassidy was using them in a lot of different situations. They played very well. Corrali, unfortunately, didn't have a great night at the face-off, dog, but they played well. I still have my doubts of Schaller playing up in the line he's playing on right now, but it just is what it is. Just got to plug him in. That's the best part about this team right now. The depth they have is crazy. I don't see Vetrano being back at all in any way, any fashion. So Czarnik could be that guy. He could be our extra forward that you're going to be plugging him in until we figure out what's going on. Yeah. Like Rob was alluding to, we don't know if Nash and Schaller are going to be back. I have my doubts that Nash will be back. Maybe Schaller, because Cassidy seems to like him a lot. But I do see Czarnik being in part of at least bringing him back on a 2-year deal.
Yeah, and like you said, regardless of what happens with Tim Schaller and Frank Vetrano, those spots could easily be taken up by a player like JFK and Czarnik. So I totally agree with that. There's so many options with having developing depth like the Bruins have right now. You can insert any of these guys at a moment's notice, and they might not produce great in their first game due to nerves and jitters, but just their participation in camps and professional environment, they're more ready than a lot of people think they are.
Yeah, and we're all forgetting that Bolesky is down in the AHL as well.
That's a buyout. It's happening. I'll put money on it.
It's
a definite buyout.
I wanted to write an article.
Can't, though.
Yes,
why can't they buy him out?
Because you can only buy out 2 players at a time, and doesn't Hayes buyout run into next year?
Hang on a second. I'm on Cap Friendly right now. Jimmy Hayes.
I think you're right.
Jimmy Hayes has got next year, and Dennis Seidenberg has $1.1 million left.
Yeah, so you can't buy him out. Yeah.
Wow.
So he's sticking around, and I'm guessing if he gets the time in the AHL, he's going to get time in the NHL.
Hindsight's 2020, and they should have packaged Subban for Vegas to take Bolesky at the expansion draft. Give him Colin Miller and that. No, I'm saying here you can have Colin Miller, you can have Subban, but you have to take Bolesky.
Yeah.
And he has not played well in Providence. He's got 3 goals. I thought he'd be a lot better player. He is that leader type down there, but if he wants to ever get a sniff of the NHL again, especially with the Bruins organization, that individual needs to step it up. And he did get hit in the face with a deflection. I think it was against the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. He took a puck right in the eye, broke his orbital socket. So he looks like he's in rough shape, and I believe he just got cleared on yesterday, to take the full clear cage off. So he's gone from a 3rd-line player down to a 4th-line role player, and his
confidence is gone.
Yeah, and it's sad. It really is. And I wanted to write an article about this, and I backed off on it because every situation that I was going through, I'd write 4 or 5 paragraphs, and every one of them sounded like I was an asshole that was just like bringing the guy down. And I don't want to do that. The guy does work extremely hard. He's just going through a certain time of struggles in his life right now, and a lot of the research that I was doing is he was very good friends with Jimmy Hayes. Jimmy Hayes, everybody knows, is a local kid that grew up in the Massachusetts area in Dorchester, whatever. And Matt Bolesky saw a lot of the stuff that went on with Jimmy as they were best friends. So I'm kind of under the impression that he's just like, I really don't like Boston.
Which I've said it before. A lot of players won't come to Toronto just because, Drew Doughty was the one who got quoted this summer saying he's not coming to Toronto just because of where it is.
Right.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. The fans sometimes are a little, and I'm including myself in a fan, but are a little bit entitled a little too much sometimes, and really need to just shut their mouths.
Yeah.
Like the whole Tuukka Rask thing. They wanted him and Hudobin last year traded, and then he was the savior at the end of the year. Rask is the biggest piece of crap, and then all of a sudden he's the savior again. Come on, people. Maybe it is the Patriots that makes them, and I can't believe I said the word because I don't even care about the Super Bowl today, but maybe it is because they have a team that wins all the time. They got their diaper on all the time, and once they pee in their diaper a little much, they get a little angry. Yeah. And they want to take it out on everybody around them because Jimmy Hayes has proven he wasn't a bag of crap. He's gone to a team. He's actually playing well in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's tough to play in here. Come from here and play here. Your expectations are that much higher, and you really grip your stick a little too hard to be the best person out there and represent your hometown. But
God forbid Matt Grzelcyk has a bad game.
Yeah,
because they're going to tear him a new one.
Well, I said on Twitter a few times, if you live in the Boston area, the chances are that if you have a social media account, like a lot of the players do, you follow local sports writers and stuff. And if you see someone saying, oh, well, this guy's worth a bag of pucks from a different team and he's playing like crap and he can't even score a goal, like an empty net goal, then you're going to get pissed off and you're going to get annoyed with the fan base. But people seem to think that because you're a professional athlete, you don't go on Twitter or Facebook, and you don't,
or that you're that they're allowed to treat you like a bag of crap because they're still human beings.
Yeah,
plain and simple. Come on now, people.
Yeah, it's just I prefer to think of it as you never know what's going to happen at the end of the season. I mean, look at Torrey Krug when he came in. Everyone thought he was a nobody when he came in the playoffs, and everyone was like, why are they calling this guy up, blah blah blah, and then look how well he did in the playoffs.
Yep.
So,
or this year period since he's been back after the injury.
Yeah, he has been amazing, and I've seen some people talking about how he's the Bruins' biggest trade chip and stuff. I wouldn't get rid of that guy.
Well, he's only the biggest trade chip because he doesn't have any entitlements to his contract. So people navigate to that and say, well, he's the easiest one to move. You don't have to ask him for his list.
Yeah.
So
I never understood the urgency to move players all the time. A trade doesn't always make it better. I've looked. I've tried to when we were talking about it in the group, saying, what might be available, and I'm looking, and I'm like, this year is just there's not much there. There's some pieces, but like, do you really want to give up a bunch of pieces to bring in McDonough, who's he's at the tail end of his career. He's like what Boychuk's doing in Long Island right now, disappearing.
Yep.
You don't want to bring in these pieces and have to give up a lot. People say, oh, you need to. Well, no, you don't. It's a new NHL. If you can get a guy who's a sixth year in the league, sure. But any guy that's got 8 years plus, I don't think they should go out. I don't think they should give anything in the future to get this guy.
Yeah, I think I read one of the articles the new Black and Gold writer did the other day. Thomas Nystrom, is it?
Nystrom, yep.
You of all people can't do the Nystrom name, really?
Well, I didn't know whether it was Nordstrom or Nystrom.
Fair enough.
Wasn't sure. His Twitter handle is different to his name.
Yeah.
But I read his article the other day talking about the whole what should the Bruins do at the trade deadline, and he said it perfectly. Depth players. You don't need a top six winger right now. You need a guy who can sit on the sidelines and wait till an injury happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because if you mess with the chemistry of this team now, and I know we've said it before, we don't like the whole chemistry thing, but...
No, you two did. I love the chemistry thing.
At the moment, it is a chemistry thing, but I don't understand when people say, oh, this affects chemistry and that affects chemistry, and everything affects chemistry. But, I wouldn't mess with anything with this team. I'd bring in players that can sit on the sidelines and watch until something happens.
Yeah.
And at the same time, try and get rid of the guys that aren't doing anything. Because when was... what's the guy that we got from...
Postman. I was just about to say, the two people you got to replace are Postman and Vetrano.
Well,
there's your two guys you can replace.
Vetrano and Bolesky.
Yeah. Well, Bolesky's in the minors. I'm talking about guys that are on the roster right now. Because you have the other guys that can go up and down when you have those, when Achari and Marchand go back. You have Vetrano and Postma that you can replace with veterans that can be plugged in.
Yeah. And
if we need them.
You go to a team I know I'm making it sound like it's easy and it's not, but you go to a team like Arizona and you say, look, we got this contract of Matt Bolesky. We'll give you him and Vetrano for basically a guy who's the same as Vetrano. And you just look for a different skill set because obviously Vetrano's skill set isn't right for this team.
Well, the worst part about trying to move Bolesky is you do have $3 million. Well, it's about $2.7 million locked up in buyout right now with Seidenberg and Hayes. Yeah. So the only way this will actually work to have him move on to another organization is if the Bruins retain salary on his contract, which would mean
at the draft someone wants to move up.
Right.
Yeah. You can package him in. You can move up all you want, but you're gonna take. You can have my pick, but you're taking Mac Bolesky.
But
you can't really move up from 30 though if they win the cup.
Yeah, that's a good point. But if you got almost $3 million locked up in buyouts and an extra let's just say 1.8 for the sake of argument that another team would want the Bruins to retain. That's just a lot of just dead money sitting right there with the cap going up at least 5 maybe.
Yeah, but those type of deals happen all the time. If the fact that Chris Pronger is on the Arizona's payroll, you got Datsuk who's been traded. His contract is not that bad. I really think that Sweeney will pull something off at the draft. It's going to cost to scare everybody, but it's going to cost either somebody in our farm system or a high draft pick to move this player. But it would be better off to do so that you still have the money, because I've been I want to scare the pants off people because it's true. At the end of next year, you have Danton Heinen, Brandon Carlo, and Charlie McAvoy. They are way more important to re-sign than possibly losing somebody that's in our farm system. I'm sorry, just get that done. If you've got to move Bolesky, if you've got to move other salaries, it could happen. Any big deal that this Bruins team's going to do is going to happen at the draft. If they can pull off getting some veterans at the trade deadline, sure, but anything big is going to happen at the draft.
Yeah, the thing is, what I would do, and I know people don't like armchair GMing and all that stuff, But what I would do is, if you end up, say, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, one of the last 4 picks in the first round, look for a team to move into the first round from the second round, like you were saying, Court. Like, just a team that are, like, dead set on a player that they think is going to go late in the first round. Just ask around and say, is there anyone you need to pick right now? Because if you do, you can have that pick. We'll have your second round, but you take Mark Bolesky.
Exactly. And that can definitely happen because it happens at every draft when people move up. Yeah. And we never understand why people do it.
Who was the guy? Oh, it was Bickle that went to Carolina, wasn't it?
Yes.
In a similar deal. Yeah. And I'm sure his was one of the ones that was at the draft, and it was kind of you take this pick, we'll take that pick, but you've got to take this guy.
Yeah. And his salary is not that bad to move. If David Clarkson can get his salary moved to Vegas, like these huge salaries can be moved. So if you look at what's possible, unfortunately, and I've said it before, between Riley Nash and Ryan Spooner, one of them is playing themselves out of a contract with the Boston Bruins next year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, both of them are playing better than they've played in a really long time, and it's going to be really hard to be able to keep both of them under the cap. And even Nash, I would be like, okay, I'll bring you back for a 1-year deal. Well, he's going to probably want some security and want 3 years. So unfortunately, he's going to be like gone. I just don't see Riley Nash coming back, and I can see the team, especially the way he's playing, bringing Ryan Spooner back.
Okay.
He's playing in a top 6 role, and he's consistently putting up points.
And I hate to say this,
to bring him back.
The guy that I could see as a young talent that could be moved is Anders Bjork.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. It's just
inconsistent first year.
And it's just been injured a lot, and it's just the more he gets injured, the more he gets moved down the depth chart. Because other guys come up and start playing better, and then he gets moved down. And I think he's amazing, and I don't want him moved. I'm not saying he's getting moved. I'm just, if you look at what happened, the same thing happened to Bertrand. He was playing well, and then he had a couple bad games, and then he went down the depth chart. And those can happen. Danton Heinen was lucky enough to come back up on the depth chart, but he was almost playing himself off this team. But Anders Bjork, if he continues down this pace of getting hurt, he could not be on this team. He could be one of those young players that could get moved. Unfortunately.
Yeah. It sucks. I like Anders Bjork a lot, and it's that kind of I don't know. I thought it was a cheap shot. Was that Francois Beauchemin?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of like gave him a shot in the arm. So now he's got an upper body injury, and I don't know. The injuries this year to be, start the year were just tough, and now we're getting down to, time to pump the playoffs, and you just don't want to see anybody, regardless of depth chart or core player, injured and down and out. So we hope the best for him to get better. Speaking of getting better, I know we touched on it a little while ago, but I got to do it anyway. Tuukka Rask he's 18-0-2 in his last 20. And these numbers are going back to November 29th of 2017. And in that time frame, he's got a 1.54 goals against, and I think it's a .938 save percentage, which is obviously best in the league right now. And both him and Hudobin now have the best goals against as a team at a 2.37. So that Jennings trophy...
3.7?
Is it?
3.8.
3.8. Thank you.
Looking right at it.
No, I appreciate it.
They were that already. That's how great the goaltending's been.
Well, LA's obviously fallen apart because they were number one for the longest time, and
it's what it.
But I mean, we did talk about that Jennings trophy, and it kind of being they were the third best goals against in the league, and they could challenge for it. Well, here's a good indication if they can keep playing this way to the end of the year that they could possibly share that. That's a great honor, Not only that, but you walk away with a Vezina trophy also. Oh,
Vezina?
Yeah.
It's
right.
the word.
I know.
Sorry, I shouldn't correct you. That's my apologies.
It's just the way I say things because I don't say anything correctly.
Yes, but Tuukka Rask, they were saying it on, like, I don't want to toot the whole hockey night in Canada, but I to me it's like church. You know, I don't go to church, but listen to Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night. It's something every Canadian does, and it's like the epitome. Like if you talk to any player on this Bruins roster who's Canadian, if they get to do the in between periods like Bergeron did for Hockey Night in Canada, and he got to do the interview, that's a big deal to be that Saturday night game. And all they talked about before the game, intermission, was the play of Tuukka Rask, Patrice Bergeron, and the Boston Bruins. And they've been doing this for about 2 weeks now. That's all they talk about and how good the Bruins are. They use the words elite to describe Tuukka Rask. They use the words elite team. They use the words Hart Trophy to describe Patrice Bergeron and guaranteed Selke Trophy. These are the words that I got to see, and it's just here. It's a big deal that the Bruins are now finally that back up there. Like Ty Anderson got to be on the Fan 590, my local Toronto radio station yesterday. I got to listen to it. And it was just awesome to hear them talk Bruins. It's usually just Leafs.
Right.
James Myrtle got chastised today on Twitter because he pretty much said the Leafs aren't in the same caliber as the Bruins, and all the Leaf fans lost their minds. This guy's a local reporter.
Yeah, he is. And he's a good writer, too.
Very good for The Athletic there, and he got chastised.
If Bergeron does win this Selke, does that make him the greatest two-way forward of all time?
Well,
because
now
won the most Selkies in the shortest amount of time.
They did a whole feature on
him. Two. Yeah, I'm sure he's missed two in the past 6 years.
He will go ahead Bob Gainey by one. He's tied with 4 right now.
Yeah.
I say before I say it again, he's first ballot Hall of Famer if he retired today, and his number will hang in the Boston Garden.
And
guaranteed.
He's got quite a bit of playing time left in him.
Oh yeah.
We got about 15 minutes remaining. I wanted to touch on some. It is kind of Bruins related, but it's a little more of a league issue. But I want to talk about expansion because over the last weekend during the All-Star break, Gary Bettman did say it, that if Seattle is to become a franchise, which it looks like it's going to, that they will require an expansion draft. So.
Yes. And the same rules will apply.
Exactly. So here's my question to you, gentlemen. Which Bruin gets unprotected to make this? Well,
because it's not going to be for 2 years. They said it won't be next year, it'll be the year after.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I thought it was another year away.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate here. Let's say it's next year, even though it's not. Let's just say it's next year, and you can only protect the exact same amount of players again. Unfortunately, if you look at the roster, you protect the same guys.
I leave McAvoy unprotected.
What?
Well, you don't have to.
I'm joking.
You don't have to. Well, here's the good news. You don't have to protect DeBrusk. You don't have to protect McAvoy. You don't have to protect Carlo. But if it's 2 years from now...
You will, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're looking...
The
good thing is Chara's no trade goals.
Sorry, I love Torrey Krug. He will no longer be a Boston Bruin. You leave him unprotected and let him get taken.
Chara's no trade clause goals.
He won't have one.
No trade clause goals in 2 years. Adam McQuaid's, does he have a no trade? No, he doesn't.
No.
His contract ends in 2 years. So
does Mitch has 2 years left on his?
Miller's got a longer contract, so it's
but he's on no trade.
Right. Both Miller and McQuaid don't have anything on their contracts.
He's only 2 years left, though. His contract.
Yes, but regardless, you've got to take what we to really look at it. Take what we protected this year, and then add in Carlo and McAvoy, and then take out somebody. So you're going to take out Torrey Krug and Kevin Miller with the other protected defensemen, and those are the two you leave unprotected. So you're going to lose Torrey Krug or Kevin Miller.
See, I'd go.
You're not gonna leave Carlo and McAvoy unprotected.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
My two players that I would leave unprotected would be Kevin Miller and Adam McQuaid.
Yeah, but they're gonna be left unprotected regardless.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And they may no longer be Bruins in 2 years anyway. So
Yeah, if we did this in 2 years from now, which is what it is, you're going to protect Carlo and you're going to protect McAvoy. You're not going to protect Torrey Krug, but you might because Chara probably won't be here in 2 years. So maybe the three defensemen you protect are McAvoy. You actually, it's a perfect storm. You get to protect Krug, McAvoy, and
Carlo.
And you leave Kevin Miller and Adam McQuaid unprotected. It's actually a better. The only thing is,
better than no.
Yeah, but then you have here's the caveat. Unfortunately, well, as long as Bolesky's gone, then Danton Heinen, Danton Heinen, somebody can move into that spot. I guess Heinen moves into that spot as being protected.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to. Well, no, Jake DeBrusk moves into that spot.
But as well,
Oh no, DeBrusk wouldn't. He'd be 1 year away, so he'd be fine. You wouldn't even have to protect him.
But as well, like we've had 5 rookies in the team this year. All of those rookies we kind of want to protect. Maybe other than Curley.
Well, you won't have to. In the PCL contract, you don't have to.
But what I'm saying is, then what if you get 3 like younger guys come in like next year?
So you don't have to protect them.
Yeah, but they could sign someone that's not needing an entry level deal, and then you need.
Sure, but
yeah.
but I don't see them bringing in anybody with the amount of depth they have. I don't see them going out there and getting another, what's his name that we got from Kenny Agostino. I don't see them pulling off. And regardless, let that guy be unprotected. Yeah. Because if you're looking at the list right now, okay, so Chara in 2 years you wouldn't have to protect him. So you get to keep Krug unless he gets traded, to bring in Saburo, based on depth chart. But you'll be able to protect McAvoy. You'll be able to protect Carlo. You're going to have to protect Heinen, but you won't have to protect DeBrusk. You're going to be lucky because he's just going to be. He won't have. I believe it's ECL or a certain amount of games. I think you might be lucky on DeBrusk. Otherwise, you're going to have to choose between DeBrusk and Heinen. Like, oh, that's scary.
Yeah, it is. The last question, and this is kind of an important one for me because it almost seems like the wild card scenario that the league brought in kind of caters to them, like certain matchups that the league wants. You know what I mean? So this format is installed for 2 more seasons. Now, there's a lot of talk lately on TSN and Sportsnet from the podcasts that I listen to and NHL Network that the league might be going back to the 1-8-2-7 scenario to avoid situations like that because it just seems like you're almost playing the same teams all the time.
Yeah.
So it's also you got teams making the playoffs that shouldn't.
Right. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think it go back to the old way or keep the wild card installed?
100% go back to the old way, and also please change the names of the divisions and the conferences back to the old names. Please bring back the old names of the Campbells and the Wales and the Norris and the Smythes. Come on.
Yeah.
Bring these. And if they did do that, did you see who the Boston Bruins would have in their division? It'd be the Leafs, the Rangers, the Islanders.
Well, it's just
Montreal Canadiens.
That's all geographic. That's what
I
works.
know, that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. It makes perfect sense for traveling wise in a league seemingly wants to save $1 on a flight across the country.
Well, Florida's not a long flight.
No, I know, but
but Florida should be in the same division as Carolina.
Right.
I totally agree with you. It should be the Leafs, the Devils, the Rangers, the Islanders,
the old Patrick,
the Red Wings. No, weren't they the Norris Smythe? It was the Patrick.
Norris was Chicago, Toronto, and St. Louis.
Detroit.
The Patrick division was all the Mid-Atlantic teams.
Yeah, but Toronto stayed. I'll try and find it while you guys are talking. I think Tampa and Florida come out, and then you have Toronto, Boston. I think New Jersey, the Rangers. It looks scary, mind you. The Rangers don't scare anybody anymore, but
One thing I wanted to kind of touch on is everyone keeps saying the depth of this team is amazing, but do they really have defensive depth? Other than Adam McQuaid and Kevin Miller switching out who sits games, do they really have defensive depth if it comes to what happened last year?
Oh, no, they need a defenseman. I think that's the only thing they need to get at the trade deadline, but they don't. Like you were saying before, they just need a guy they can have up top, and if they need to plug him in, they can plug him in. They don't need to mortgage the future to bring in anybody.
Yeah. They don't need a Ryan McDonough. They need like a Ian Cole type player. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but it's supposedly they were saying it on the on Hockey Night in Canada last night, and as Mark knows, when Elliot Friedman says that's what the water is right now, that's what the trade water is. And they're saying teams are asking way too much. The trade value right now for players is extremely high for no reason.
Yeah.
They like Pacioretty is a first rounder, a player that can play now, a prospect, and a second rounder. And they're saying that's just too much.
That's totally too much.
So if they do, the Smythe division, so you were right, the Smythe division would be Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Seattle, San Jose, LA, Anaheim, Vegas. And then you'd have the Norris division, which would be Winnipeg, Minnesota, Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, Colorado, Dallas, and Arizona. And then you'd have the Adams division, which would be Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Buffalo, Boston, and the 3 New Yorks. And then you have the Patrick division, which would be Pittsburgh, Columbus, Nashville, Carolina, Philly, Washington, Tampa, and Florida.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's your new, and I love the names. Back to the Adams.
Oh yeah,
all those names.
Bring it back, man.
And then look at that. You'd have that whole Adams division would be in a half an hour flight of each other. Half an hour.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yep. It just makes sense. It really does. All right, gentlemen. That is it. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for the constant support. We've been getting killer downloads the past 4 weeks. We've been up to like 1,300 downloads a week, and it's been awesome. Thank you very much. Another way to support the show is obviously if you see us, our show on the social media, share it. That's the easiest way. If you'd like to do it financially and look good, we all know our listeners are an 8, but you'd be a 10 if you get some new Black and Gold Hockey Podcast gear. You can find that gear at bngshop.bigcartel.com or just go to the Black and Gold Hockey.com website. We changed that. We took the blog out and shortened it up for people because it just looks better and a little more professional. So remember, blackandgoldhockey.com. Find us on Apple iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, Player.fm, anywhere you can find a Podbean for our Android listeners, anywhere where you find a podcatcher, we are most likely available on it. And please stay tuned for my interview with Colin Bestwick, Stanley Cup of Chowder NHL writer for SB Nation. Court, Rob, thank you again. You guys are always the best, and we'll talk soon. Hey, Bruins fans. As mentioned previously in our program, I'm psyched to have returning guest and friend of the program, Colin Bestwick. Colin is an NHL writer for SB Nation's Stanley Cup of Chowder. You can find him at C.Bestwick on Twitter. Colin, thank you very much for taking some time today.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get started with just some general Bruins talk and somebody that we don't normally talk to on a daily basis, even though we do our tweet thing. How do you feel about this team when the season started going 6-7 and 1 to the transition of healthy players coming back into the lineup and where they sit right now as one of the best teams in the NHL? It's a great feeling, isn't it?
It is. If I'm being totally honest, I did not think the team would be anywhere near as good as they are playing right now. I thought with the young players coming in, they'd be a playoff team, but it would be a bit more of a challenge. But over the last month and a half, they've really put it together. they've integrated different players in and out of the lineup with injuries, and nothing seems to be slowing them down. They're just rolling against pretty much everyone they've seen.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier, but I did some a little bit of research and counted back the games. But in the last 30 games, the Bruins have gotten points, and they've only lost in 5 regulation games. That is just absolutely amazing. And their climb up the Eastern Conference is just indicative of how this team is gelling together and playing for one another, and it's great. And the direction that Bruce Cassidy has installed in these younger players, first-year pros, and the core which most have been around since 2011, when the last time the franchise won the Stanley Cup. It's a good sign that this is going to be a Bruins hockey team that's going to be competitive. I'm not going to say Stanley Cup competitive every year, but competitive for the next 6 or 7 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like they've been set up, well for the future. You have to give Don Sweeney and Cam Neely some credit for that. I know in recent years fans have been a little upset maybe with the direction of the team, but I mean, you look at the salary cap as it's expected to rise and the young prospects they have. They almost have too much depth with some of their players, which, I mean, it's a good problem to have, but they really are. They could be set up, like you said, for years to be successful. Now, like you said, it's hard to make the Stanley Cup once, let alone regularly, but I mean, they should be a playoff team for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and like they did in previous years. I mean, they had a stretch that they were in the playoffs for 7 consecutive seasons, and which ultimately, in that time frame, won a Stanley Cup for the first time in 39 years. But as a reporter that gets regular access to the locker room and players, do you see or feel the difference in the air that this team is just happier and the train is oiled and ready to go for a long playoff run?
So objectively, it's my first year covering them, so I don't really have a baseline. But I will say that every time that I've been in the locker room, that question seems to come up, whether it's from me or one of the other beat reporters. And it seems like a pretty tight-knit group. To a man, every player that's been asked has had sort of the same answer, that there's a different feel in the locker room this year. They all seem to be pulling in the same direction. In the past year or two, you heard things about maybe, the camaraderie not being as strong as in years past, or not all the players were buying in, that sort of thing. But you don't hear anything about that this year. You have players like Spooner, who's really turned around his game, really been a team-focused player. Even Vetrano, who it's got to be tough. He hasn't had regular playing time up until recently, but even he seems to have bought in, and they're all pulling in the same direction. I think a lot of that has to do with the veteran leadership with Chara and Bergeron and Tuukka and so on. But you start to get that feeling, and you even hear some of the beat reporters kind of saying it too behind the scenes, that that this sort of seems like a special team, a special season. So I think Bruins fans or not, everyone's probably excited to see just how far this team can go, because they're an absolute wagon right now.
Yeah, no doubt. The trade deadline's coming up later on this month. I believe it's set for the 26th or the 28th. I'm not sure, but it is later in this month. And Don Sweeney came on the record on Nesson in one of the games when he was being interviewed before, and did mention that they would be willing to explore trade options. Do you see a fit out there, just in your personal opinion? You don't have to do the whole contract match or money coming in, money going out. But do you see a fit in this lineup, the way that this team has shown so much chemistry and words like cohesing? Do you see them making a move, even though Don Sweeney has said that he would explore?
I've gone back and forth on this so many times, Mark.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but
I can see them making one of two moves. I think it's either going to be something, real minor depth move, maybe for a depth defenseman, Or I could see them actually cashing in some of their chips, some prospects, some draft picks to get either a legit top 4 defenseman like McDonough from the Rangers. I know Matt Coleman was talking about that last night on Twitter, or a scoring winger perhaps for the top 6. Personally, just Colin speaking, I'm not sure I'd break up the chemistry they have right now unless you're getting, a bona fide, legit player to bring in. But even then, the team is playing so well. They're defensively one of the top teams in the league. They're scoring over, I think, 3 goals a game. If you're asking me personally, I almost say don't mess with the chemistry. But I'm not a general manager. I'm not smart enough to make those decisions. But it will be interesting to see how they move forward at the deadline. Because, like I mentioned before, they have so many young forward prospects in particular that, they're just not all going to be able to play. You see Zarnik got sent back down today. You have, Senyshyn, you have JFK. I think Donato may be coming out after this year. And there just isn't that many spots for them. So they certainly are dealing from a position of strength if they do decide to make a move.
Yeah, we talked about this early in the program a little bit. And like Court and Rob was saying, that they would want to make a move for a player that is like in the Postma scenario. He's not playing on an everyday basis, but a player that is young enough to be inserted whenever needed, and for that depth. But I don't want to make a trade just for the sake of trading. That's just dumb in my opinion. But I also don't want to address the now. I would like them to make a move if they have to, and if they have to install some prospects into it, which I'm not a fan of because I'm a prospect guy. But I understand how everything works. Is you want to address the long term. So if you want to be a competitive team for the next several years, that your idea to bring in players should be that in those players and not just a 1 year rental. I do not like rentals at all. They work, but that's for another team. In the past, and the Bruins have done rentals. It just really hasn't worked, and with no hopes of re-signing. So it's either long term for me or just stay the pat. I like the way this team looks. The chemistry is good. They seem to be playing for one another, and I hope that they can definitely exceed expectations. So, I mean, it remains to be seen, but it should be interesting to see what Don Sweeney's going to do.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm not a huge fan of the short-term rentals either. I know oftentimes NHL teams that are quote-unquote contenders sort of push the chips into the middle of the table and get a rental player to try and go all in. But to your point, I think the chemistry is so strong right now. If they're going to make a move and if they're going to give up on some of these higher-end prospects, in return for that, it better be someone who has term, like you said, building for the future. Because this team does have, it seems, a pretty good window going forward. So I would have to agree with you on that. I don't really want to see them trading away picks or prospects just to get, a couple months from a player here.
Let's talk about goaltending for a little bit. Next season, especially, how do you feel about the team possibly re-signing Hudobin, who's going to want an increase, and the cap is going up? But in my opinion, I'd rather see that money be allocated to other areas of the team. But on the other side of the coin, you have Zane McIntyre, who had an exceptional American Hockey League season last year, and is not having the same type of season this year. And I had him as basically a walk-in at a very cap-friendly number to be next season's backup, as Hudobin won't be resigned. That's just my opinion. But now that McIntyre really isn't putting up the numbers that he was prior, and his limited NHL experience, does this force the team into possibly re-signing Hudobin at a number that he's comfortable with?
Yeah, I was surprised this year with McIntyre. I think when I was on the program last time, I mentioned he looked strong in training camp and all of that. But as you mentioned, he's not having as great a year as maybe I or others have expected. But I do expect Hudobin back. The issue I think with Hudobin isn't so much the cost. He does make probably a little bit above average for a backup. He's making $1.2 million this year.
Yep.
The issue with Hudobin is term, because I think with how well he's played this year, and at his age, he's 31, I want to say, he may want a 2-year deal, especially as a backup to get a little more security. And I don't know if the Bruins are going to be willing to give him the second-year option for the reasons you mentioned earlier, what they have McIntyre in the prospect system and some younger goalies as well, Ladar and Swayman and so on and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see if Hudobin's back and if it's a 1-year or 2-year. I don't think the dollars are going to be the issue so much. And I think Dobie is a huge fan of living in Boston. He's been on the record as really liking this area. I think he's comfortable here. And frankly, he's played his best hockey here too. That's something I talked to him probably about a month ago about. And I think he really enjoys working with Tuukka, being a tandem here with Tuukka. So long answer to that is that I think he'll be back. My only concern is whether or not the Bruins are going to commit to a 2-year deal for a goalie, over 30, when they likely want to get their prospects some NHL playing time as well.
You mentioned that you talked to Hudobin about that certain topic. Is that when you changed your Twitter profile picture?
Yeah, probably about that.
Because when I was researching, not researching, I already know you, but I had to go to your Twitter account to get some information on who you write for and so on. But I saw the picture of you in the background as Hudobin's getting interviewed, so I had to ask.
Yep, that's actually Court tipped me off to that photo, actually. So I have to thank Court for that.
Nice.
I always get cut out of all the videos and stuff on Nesson and the Bruins Twitter page and everything. It's like an ongoing battle trying to get into the video there.
Right. Well, you could always do what friend of the show Rhonda McClure does, and get yourself like a neon green mic. I love that pink one. She cracks me up with that thing.
You always know where Rhonda is. You can see her mic.
Oh yeah. What are your realistic expectations for a playoff run? I mean, I'm at the point. If you ask me, it's definitely to make a second round appearance, and I think possibly maybe another one. Are you one of the Kool-Aid drinkers that are already calling a Stanley Cup final?
I won't go that far. I think the floor of my expectations is they should win, in the first round. Right now, the most likely opponent is obviously the Maple Leafs, who before last night, the Bruins had lost 6 in a row to them. But, last night without Marchand, without Miller, I mean, they dominated last night in terms of possession, score, just all around. So I think, depending on matchup, I fully expect them to win the first round. After that, that's where it sort of gets tough. I think that they certainly have the skill to put it together and, make it to the Eastern Conference Final or even beyond. But, that's a hard prediction to make right now. Tampa Bay is obviously playing really well, and there's a lot of games left to be played between now and then. But I think that the way the team's been playing, I can certainly understand why fans think, they could be making a deep run. You look at Ottawa last year, and I'll be the first to admit I did not have Ottawa going as far as they did. So I think this Bruins team certainly has the skill and the makeup to make a deep run, but I may wait a little longer before I'm going on the record saying they're making the cup. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to wait till after the first round, and then I'll call it. So,
yeah, I saw earlier they have, I think actually the highest odds in a lot of a lot of places that track that to make the Cup finals too. So it seems like people outside of Boston are starting to buy in as well. But like I said, a lot of games to be played between now and then. So we will see. Yeah,
there's a ton of talk. We talked about it earlier, especially Court. He mentions on the regular, being a Toronto resident, that before the season it's Leafs, but this year he's been hearing a lot more Bruins from Sportsnet, TSN, so on. Kiprios, those guys are all really pumping the tires of this team and really like it. So, and it's territories that we, as Bruins fans in the Northeast, don't always get to when you get to that high of a totem when it comes to hockey talk and the mecca of the hockey world. So definitely really good to see this team and the way they work. I knew that they were going to install a few young players into the lineup, but not as much as 5 to 7 per time. And obviously injuries play a huge part of that, but just the way that this team is constructed and the way that Bruce Cassidy and Kevin Dean and Pandolfo, Sacco, those guys have all just bought into a plan, and they embed it in the core players and young talent's heads that this is the way we want to do it and this is the way we're going to do it, and the production on the ice has just been simply like poetry in motion. And I hope nothing for the best, but it all remains to be seen. There still is a lot of hockey left. There's a tough schedule coming up, especially in March when you play every other day. So it should be very exciting. So I'm definitely pumped for it. I'm basically at a loss for words just talking about it. But
yeah, I gotta say, I think we may look back on this year when it's all said and done. I think there'll be 2 storylines, big storylines to talk about, and that's one, the job Bruce Cassidy's done, and I think he's done really, it's hard to argue with the results. He's done an amazing job. But the other big story, to me at least, that I always keep going back to is, to your point, how many young players have come up and not just, gotten NHL playing time, but have been successful. It seems like the team has done a really good job of putting the younger players in a position to be successful. And, in recent years, that may not have been the case. If you had told me before the year you'd be playing 5, 6, 7, 8 rookies or young players and still being successful, I probably would have been skeptical of it. But it seems like no matter who's called up, whether it's Zarnik, whether it's whoever, they're coming up, they're making an impact not only on the score sheet but integrating well with the team. And it's a credit to Bruce and the coaching staff, but also to the veteran leadership on the team. I've talked to Chara about that. I've talked to a few people, and I don't know what it is about the team, but like I said, they're close-knit, and they seem to be welcoming in the young players and making them comfortable enough to come in and be successful, which as a long-time, follower of the team, it's great to see this young talent coming up and finding the success that they are. So it's been fun to watch.
Absolutely. Colin, thank you very much for the time. We're going to let you go. Everybody, please follow Colin on Twitter at @CBestwick. You can also read his work. He's an NHL writer for SB Nation, Stanley Cup of Chowder. Those guys do an amazing job. Colin is a constant producer of articles and quality content. So please give him a follow, give him a read. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Go Pats.
Thanks, Mark. Go Pats.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. You can follow the guys on Twitter at blackandgold277, at Court Lalonde, and at Rob40Bruins. You can also send us an email to the show's account at blackandgoldhockeyblog@gmail.com.